forward, as we get into the next LeaderSpeak HOPE session, we will also be moving forward with the visual narrative. This one adds another feather in Unstoppable India's cap. Here we talk about India's space program. From the moon to the sun, India's space program is demonstrating how precision, engineering, and cost innovation can expand global access to space. Landmark missions such as Chandrayaan-3 and Aditya L1 highlight India's growing role in delivering high-impact space capabilities at globally competitive costs. Let's take a look. Just the perfect setting to our next LeaderSpeak at HOPE session. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to welcome onto the stage a global hospitality leader who has played a defining role in shaping Hyatt Group's brand evolution and guest-centric philosophy across markets worldwide. So please, with all hands in this room put together, let's welcome onto the stage the President and CEO Hyatt Hotels Corporation, Mark S. Hoplamazian, in a very special conversation with President and CEO South Asia HVS ANAROCK, Mr. Mandeep Lamba.
Once again, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to see that we now have a hall reasonably full of people and everyone has woken up after the hangover of last night. This is an extremely special session. Just quickly giving you a little background, when we planned the first HOPE, which was in 2023, the first global CEO that I had reached out to was Mark. And since then, we've been trying to find the schedule to bring him into India for HOPE. And I'm so delighted that we have one of the most influential global hospitality leaders right here in this room. So ladies and gentlemen, can we please welcome Mark with a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Mark, and
thank you, Mandeep.
Greatly honored.
It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
Mark, let's start with the fact that although you took over as the CEO in 2006, 20 years ago.
Yes.
But you were not new to Hyatt.
Right.
You were earlier running the Pritzker family office, and from there, then you moved on. And that was even before Hyatt got listed.
That's right.
And you took Hyatt into the public markets much before asset light became the industry shortened. Looking back, what was the hardest mindset shift in transforming Hyatt into today's global platform?
So before I begin, I do want to say thank you to Vikram Batra, the general manager of this hotel, and his team. I think they've done a superb job. This is a great operation. So, and to anybody who's a Taj alum or a current Taj person, my hat's off to you. So I think, first of all, the company has gone through so many changes. And of course, the scale of the company is very different than it was before. And I think when I came into the industry, there were only two things that people on Wall Street cared about. One was size. Apparently, size was the only thing that mattered. And the second became asset light. As Gaurav, I think, at the last session artfully explained, real estate is not the enemy of brands. It's a part of our business, and we have to really appreciate that. I think the heroes of the Indian hotel industry are the owners, are the developers who have lived through more hardship than success in the last 20 years. And I've been coming to India several times a year for 20 years in a row. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's been very tough. I've been a big bull on India for that entire time, and you know, it took me 18 years during that 20-year period to be right. Now I feel like we're justified. I think the biggest mindset shift is as you grow, the risk is that you revert to a lowest common denominator approach to how you operate. And I think that's a mistake. It's sometimes attractive to think that if you could regularize or standardize, that would be the best thing because it's efficient. I think that's the death knell. So we have been described as the smallest of the major brands. I actually think of ourselves as the largest of the differentiated platforms. And there's a big difference between those two descriptions. And I think what that requires mindset-wise, which is really the key question you asked, which is a great question, is a growth mindset. You have to constantly be thinking about the challenges that you see, the opportunities that you see, and instead of reverting to a set of rules that you're trying to apply to everything, the questions you should ask are, how might we? And what would it take in order for us to be able to do that? That's how you put yourself in a growth mindset. And I think that's been the key in terms of how we've progressed the company.
And in that journey, Mark, is there anything that you have to unlearn?
Many things. I think, first of all, there's a general premise that I have in life, which is that averages lie. And so much of our industry has metrics that are averages. So people talk about RevPAR and RevPAR index without bothering to ask a few other questions, like who is in the comp set? And by the way, at least in Asia, rooms revenue is about half of our total revenue base. So what about the other half? I mean, the last panel talked about the importance of food and beverage and events. So I think there's some things that have become sort of like autonomic for the hotel industry, and I think too few times are people really asking, okay, does that really make sense? And how might we think differently? And how is success truly defined? And staying focused on outcomes instead of outputs. So instead of thinking about the task at hand, think about the impact that you're trying to generate, the change in behavior that you're trying to generate, and have that be the first thing in your mind. So instead of being task-oriented, be outcome-oriented. And I think that's an unlearning, because so much of the industry is execution-focused, like this is how you do things, this is how we get things done. God forbid you're picking up the SOPs, your standard operating procedures, and checking what that should be. That's also a death knell. So I believe in unleashing the good judgment of really good people and letting them ask different questions about how you do things.
Mark, you've added platforms like lifestyle collectives and curated luxury more than the traditional hotel brands. Are we really watching hotel companies becoming more experiential than a room-driven business purely?
I think so, although you have to be careful about what it really means at the end of the day. I think we feel strongly that experiences matter a lot. Part of it is the experiences that you're creating on property, but part of it's experiences in the environment of the destination. So in many places, we engage local artists, we engage local chefs, and I think many people have understood the power of that because it really roots you in a location. But even here in India, like at the Alila Fort Bishangar, there's a really great Rajasthani cooking experience that you can go to. Stephen mentioned food and beverage, and we are redoubling down on all of our food and beverage efforts to really to elevate it and also bring some more, an elevated level of authenticity into what we're doing. So we have in Kochi, which we were just talking about backstage, it's Malabar to table cuisine. And it's a really great way to introduce people to the local ingredients that are available and the local cooking methods. So I think it's not just throwing a bunch of experiences at people, it's really being very deliberate about what you do and how you do it, and first and foremost, being authentic about it, and secondly, making it meaningful so that when people experience it, it really has an impact on them. And so back to Rajasthani cooking for a second, I've been anxious to go to the Alila and have that experience, but my daughter spent 1 full year living in Udaipur and came back able to cook so many Rajasthani dishes. So I'm now like living in heaven at home since she gets to cook up some really great meals.
You know, since we're talking about food and beverage, I have to say, 1982, the first Hyatt hotel opened in New Delhi. And
what was it known for?
I was just going to make that point. India had never seen food and beverage of that kind.
Yes.
Not only in terms of variety, but the way it was presented.
Exactly
I can
right.
remember that there used to be, we had to put queue managers outside, the promenade for people to get inside. So that was really, really remarkable. And of course, Hyatt still, the restaurants in that hotel still remain very, very iconic.
Yeah.
But okay, moving on. Owners today, Mark, are far more financially sophisticated than even, let's say, a decade ago.
Yep.
What does Hyatt expect from its ownership partners now, and what should owners expect in return from Hyatt?
So, as I said earlier, the heroes of this industry in India are the owners and the developers, because they are the ones who have assembled capital and gone through the process of a lot of challenges between the difficulty in getting entitlements. Financing has been very hard fought for the vast majority of the last 20 years. It's gotten easier, but it's still very challenging. It's a difficult environment to build things. So I have tremendous respect for them. Secondly, we have been, unlike most of our competitors, pretty heavily invested in real estate in India through Juniper. So, and we've lived through the development, the building of the Andaz in Delhi and the Hyatt Regency Ahmedabad while we were investors and partners with the Saraf family. Now Juniper is public. So we have been eating our own cooking, so to speak, for 20 years. And so we know what it's like, and we've walked in the shoes of our owners. And we still do, actually, to this moment, because we still maintain our shareholding in Juniper. And what I would say is what owners should expect of us is to be very tuned in to their needs. And we have one of the key attributes of leadership at Hyatt is empathy, the ability to actually listen to understand as opposed to listening to respond. It's a big difference. And being attuned to what individual owners actually need leads us to be very personal in our engagement. So I have a lot of personal relationships with owners across the globe because it's important for us to really be attuned to what they need. So I think what owners should expect of us is to listen and hear them with clarity instead of listening to be able to just respond to them, and then be responsive to what their needs are. That's what they should expect of us. And what we should expect of them is to understand that this industry, while you heard a just avalanche of data at the beginning of the day today, I saw most of you were on your phone and heads down. So I guess the data is well known. Otherwise, you would have been paying more attention. I mean, literally, like 3/4 of the crowd was like staring at their phone the whole time. So yeah, the data is well known. It's understood, right? Unstoppable India is unstoppable. We know all the data. The fact is that that even as it grows, as our industry grows, it will be competitive, and the distinction and identity of brands it matters. It matters a lot. What expectations you set, what guests can expect of you, and what colleagues can expect when they come to work for you. By the way, in the first two presentations you've heard today, the one constituent, the one stakeholder you've not heard anything about are our colleagues, the people in the hotels that are actually delivering the experiences. So my focus is on that, because without that, all is lost. So what I expect from owners is to understand the primacy of caring for the colleagues and the primacy of being able to support brand differentiation, because in a world that will remain competitive across brands, having clarity about what your brand stands for and being able to have that translate into success matters. And sometimes that means capital investment, other times it means operating investment, but one way or the other, we have to demonstrate that that translates into value. And that's what they should expect of us.
You've invested through Juniper, which is
Yep.
mostly rare for global brands to do. But tell me, as capital gets more sort of selective globally, how do you prioritize your growth markets? What filters do really matter? Is it returns, brand fit, scale, or strategic presence?
We have a notion that there's a network effect that occurs where we track and understand where our guests are traveling, and we want to be present where they are. We, even though when I started at Hyatt, we had 5 hotels in India, today we have 55. I'm not bragging about that. That's not that impressive, by the way, given the growth of the industry. And I would say that in 5 years' time, we should have 5 times the number of hotels that we have today, because I think that's what the market would warrant. So how do you grow? Like, what is the best way to grow? And I think the best way to grow is to first understand well how people are traveling, where they're traveling, and where we can have a presence with the right brands. Second, elevating the experience, because our positioning is most easily described as serving the high end of guests in every segment that we serve. While we are, as a major company, a larger company, much more heavily weighted to luxury and lifestyle than our competitors are, we have a broad base, and what's most important is making sure that we continuously get to know that high-end customer better and better and better. If you look at the average daily rate across our system, or you look at the average income level of our guests and our members, we really are at a differentiated level. We're not necessarily higher than mono brands. Neil was up here talking about Rosewood. That's a mono brand, one brand. And Leela, very focused in one place, one dimension. We serve a number of different types of guests, but the average household income and the spending level of our guests is very high. So we have to dive deeper in and understand their needs and their desires, and I think be responsive to that. So that's the screen that I would use to say, where do we need to be? I do believe that spiritual travel is very important in India, and we already have a presence in Bodh Gaya and Haridwar, and we've got projects in Rishikesh and Katra, Indore, Lumini, and other places where I think people will come and experience something very different. I took my family to Varanasi 7 years ago, and we had a transformative experience. It was incredible. So I think the power of that and the history is not to be underestimated. I personally am thrilled that during COVID, more Indians discovered their own country. They were traveling more in India instead of going outside of India, and I think that there's just so much here. I'm a huge fan, as I said, for the last 20 years, so I think there's something special about that discovery of this country.
Wonderful. So India is one of your fastest growing markets.
Yes.
How is India structurally different from, let's say, Southeast Asia or Middle East?
Oh, it's so different in so many ways. You know, I had a great conversation. You asked me about this. Great job bringing the Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and he told me about how deliberately he's focused on reducing the friction of all the entitlements and the permits that are required to open a hotel. And quite shocking, actually, how much progress he's made already. And I think that that is one major difference in India versus other markets. It's 5 to 10 times the number of entitlements and permits you need. That's one. Two, capital. Capital has been ebbing and flowing in India. I feel like people sometimes treat India as a trade as opposed to an investing place. India is not a place for trading. It's a place to invest. And it's a long-term bet. And so we've known this. We've been around for 43 years now. And we understand this is the next generations of Hyatt leaders will be growing in India. So I think it requires a longer-term perspective and an appreciation for what capital formation means, and also some of the constraints that you live in.
Mark, you've said ignorance can be a superpower.
Yes.
In an AI-driven, data-saturated world, how does a CEO balance instinct with algorithms?
I think ignorance can be a superpower as long as it spurs creativity and it spurs questioning. And I sort of, I'm in a constant learner's mindset because even though I've been in the industry for a very long time, the death knell is to think that you actually have it figured out. Forget it. Once you get to that point, you should retire. I've definitely not figured it out. I get to work every day and I'm starting to ask myself, okay, what's changed and why? And what are the implications for what we do? So I would say that is a critical component. But AI is enabled, so we have a dedication to being agile as a company, to do lots of testing and learning, lots of experimentation. And the rapidity with which we can do that is enabled. It's like superpowered by AI because the amount of data that you can dump in and the number of experiments you can run at the same time of different elements of how you go to market, how you sell to groups, how you learn about your guests. We have a generative AI interface that we created for Hyatt.com that fundamentally transformed how you book. And in the process of that, learning a lot about our guests directly. And what do you do with that data? How quickly can you learn from it? So I think they go together. I think ignorance, if you come from it from a perspective of not knowing and continue to inquire, I think AI enables that very quickly.
And before we wrap up, Mark, if we were to meet in Hope 2032,
Yes.
5 years from now,
Yep.
what would success look like for Hyatt in India?
First, I hope that we are the biggest supporter and producer of phenomenal talent from India, for India, and for the globe. I think India can be the biggest exporter of hospitality talent and leadership in the world. It's home hospitality and the sense of hospitality and care is inherent in the Indian DNA. It's why I love coming here all the time. And I feel like that would be the greatest achievement that we could make as a company. Yes, we'll be bigger. Yes, we'll serve many more markets. And we hopefully will serve more markets in a meaningful way. So people leave India fulfilled and inspired and wowed by the history and by the culture and by the food, the cuisine. The culinary is incredible, and the art. So I want people to come away from this country dying to come back. But most importantly, I want to help really enable thousands and thousands of Indians in their quest to have great careers and a global remit. So that would be number one on my list of things that I would say is a fantastic outcome.
What a wonderful wrap-up that is. Mark, thank you so much for doing this. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Hoplamazian, one of the world's most influential hospitality leaders.
Thanks, Mandeep.